Welcome, friends, to our meditation time. I invite you just to settle in. Whatever that feels like it should be for you, do that. If you are seated, just really get comfortable in that seat you've chosen. If you're lying down, stretch out in a way that you're still alert and aware. Even if you're standing, just allow your body to stop the movement. And for these few minutes, just really bring your attention first to the breath, just that slow in and out. And then as you are paying attention to the breath, then you'll begin to bring your focus to this beautiful present moment that we've been given. And so just allow yourself to make this feel like it needs to feel for you. All this is a practice of awareness. Being aware of how we feel, being aware of the sounds around us, being aware of the breath that we are breathing, and then being so aware of what a blessing this present moment is that we let all those other things just begin to fade away. We bring our focus to the here and the now. We've been using the Yoga Sutras as inspiration for our practice for a while now, and we're still making our way through these different aphorisms, these different teachings and sayings from a couple thousand years ago. And over the next few times that we spend together, I want to really just sit with a couple of different verses that are all focused on us changing the narrative. Us changing the narrative. Because we all have these impressions in our head, some of them from our past experience, some just from learned, conditioned ways of being, some maybe we've been taught from the households in which we were raised, some are influenced by all kinds of things around us, but we all have these impressions in our heads. I always teach it in yoga teacher training as there's thumbprints on your brain. And some of those thumbprints are pressed deep into your brain and they've got deep grooves. Maybe they've been there for a long time. Maybe they were something so big that they really left an impression. And then you've got some thumbprints that there is evidence of a print, but they haven't quite gotten deep just yet. The grooves are not that defined. It doesn't mean that all of these thumbprints are bad things. They're not all trauma or sufferings that we've been through. They're just things that have created impressions about how we see the world, how we move through the world, how we respond to things that happen to us. And so today and in the coming days together, I really want us to sit with this idea that Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutras, said that we can actually change those impressions. It takes time, it takes effort, but as much as we learned them in the first place, we can unlearn them and replace them with something else, something helpful, something healthy. Because what we want is we want to see the world with clear, compassionate eyes. Not eyes that have already made up our minds about things before we even look. And so today, we're going to just kind of sit with starting to understand what each of our thumbprints are made up of. In Sanskrit, we call this samskaras, but you can just think of them as thumbprints on your mind. Things that have left their mark with you, that have caused you to think certain things, or act certain ways, or believe certain things. And so just for these next few breaths, just think, if someone were to ask you right now, what do you believe? What's your opinion on this? What do you think about that? What are some of your thumbprints? What are some of the things that really make up how you view the world? Maybe it's an affiliation with a particular belief system, a religion, a faith. Maybe it's an alignment with a certain group. Maybe it has something to do with your culture of where you were raised and the traditions of your family. But how would you respond if someone were to ask you, what's your opinion on this? What do you think about that? How do you see this? So as you're beginning to just notice these things about yourself, I want to share with you just an example just to help you see that these are not all bad things. They're just things that cause us to act and say and think in a certain way. They've just made an impression upon us. And so for me, being someone from the South, one of those things is that no matter how old a person is that's asking me a question, if that person asks me something and they are a woman, I answer with yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am. And if they're a man, I answer with yes, sir, and no, sir. And I actually thought about this not long ago as my son-in-law was correcting my grandson and making sure that he said those things. And I thought, when did I start that? 55 years old and I'm still saying yes, ma'am, and no, sir, no matter how old the person is that I'm speaking to. And so I started thinking, when was it that my parents made that impression upon my young little mind and taught me that that's how you show respect? And that's not the same throughout the world. It's not even the same throughout our country. But for me, that's one of those thumbprints on my head. And if someone asks me a question and I'm going to answer yes or no, there's a really good chance it's coming out as yes, ma'am, no, sir. And so just think to yourself, what are some of those ways, almost automatic responses to life because of these impressions, these thumbprints on your mind? Just sit for a few breaths, see if anything comes up. There are impressions or thumbprints that are associated with things that are negative or traumatic. There's people who have lived through terrible trauma, and it makes it very hard for them to trust. And so the impression in their mind is that if someone moves toward them, they step back. Sometimes probably not even realizing that they've done it, but whatever they've experienced in their life, there's this automatic response in their physical body that causes them to physically withdraw. That's one of those thumbprints. Something has happened to create a pattern, and it informs how they move through the world. There are things that people could say around you that would just pass in one ear and out the other, and you'd never think twice. But there are other things that will come through, and you'll feel this prickle on your skin, this reaction. Something inside of you has been activated by whatever it was that was said. Chances are it's not what they said, but it's the impression that you're responding from. Those same words could be said to me, and they could go in one ear and out the other. And so what Patanjali tells us from 2,500 years ago is that you've got to know what your impressions are. Showing up to meditation, just deciding that you want to be still and calm and peaceful all the time is a beautiful, beautiful intention. But it won't last unless you know what it is that you're trying to overcome? What patterns of thought are you trying to replace with stillness? What thumbprints or impressions are you trying to unlearn a bit so that peace is how you make your decisions? So that compassion is how you respond. And so he tells us this practice will teach us those things. It'll give us those things, but first we've got to know, what impressions are we trying to lessen? And the only one that knows that for you is you. And the only one that knows it for me is me. And so we're going to just practice that for just these next couple of moments. It's not a time to judge yourself or think that you've done anything wrong or you've acted in any inappropriate way. It is truly as if you've just sat down next to yourself on the couch, willing to get to know yourself a little bit better. What are the thumbprints? What are the impressions on your mind? What are the things that cause you to see the world the way that you do? And let's just see across these next couple of moments if we can't sit with those things. See them. Embrace them. And then over time, understand them just a bit more. And then we'll work toward this idea of replacing some of them with peace and stillness and compassion and quiet. But first, we sit. And as you continue to breathe, slow, deep, steady breaths, just noticing what's come up for you. I think it's interesting that in our contemporary society, you see trainings and self-help offerings about helping you to understand your biases or your ways of thinking or your beliefs. And all of these are good and fine. I just think it's interesting that these teachings have been with us for thousands of years. Thousands of years, human beings have had impressions in their head, conditioned ways of being that cause them to act and move through the world in a certain way. It's not a new concept, it's not a contemporary idea. It's just part of what it means to be human. But the Yoga Sutras remind us that we're not these human beings having this spiritual experience, but rather we really are spiritual beings operating at kind of a human level. And we've got to understand the human parts of us in order to get to the spiritual parts. If we set out in meditation to just be still and quiet, it might work for a little while. But if we don't confront and recognize and embrace the human parts of us, that stillness will be short-lived. And while it's not always fun or comfortable to sit with the parts of us that are our impressions of things, I encourage you to do that in the coming days, little by little. Just a few moments here and there. Watch how you move through the world. Listen to how you react to things. And don't judge yourself, but later, when there's a moment of quiet, just think, why did I say that? Where did that come from? And maybe you'll know, and maybe you won't. But at least you'll have an awareness that it exists. And the more that we understand about what's there, the better our chances are at truly cultivating stillness and peace and compassion and quiet. So as we close our practice, I wish for you moments of being with you, of studying your thumbprints, understanding those impressions, and as you do, embracing what a beautiful chance it is to get to know yourself just a little bit better. Namaste.